deadlift, unlike the squat or bench, only has two components to the technique, the setup and the ascent. Because it's dead, starting from a dead stop, there's no descent portion of the lift. With all the techniques, all of these cues are general rules of thumb that for the most part apply to people across the board. However, as always, there's different individuals that may be suited for something slightly different. When you're getting set up for a conventional deadlift, you want to make sure you treat a warm-up like a PR. Your setup, your focus, your intensity, your concentration, and the cues all need to be the same, whether you're lifting an empty bar or a lifetime PR. As with most of the power lifts, there's strong implications to how you properly set up that cause a miss or failed lift. Most people think that when they miss a lift, it's due to something that's happening at that time. But with deadlifts and all the other lifts, there's times where actually how you are setting up and getting prepared can cause that failure down the road. For the technique on conventional deadlift, I'm going to start with a ground up. First is stance width. Rule of thumb, you want to be slightly narrower than shoulder width. If you go too wide, your arms are going to also have to be too wide, which can be strenuous on the grip. But you don't want your stance to be too narrow where the muscles of your inner legs start running into each other as you try to squeeze to lock out. So generally for most people, a little narrower than shoulder width. Your toes, you want them to either be pointed straight ahead or slightly out. And most importantly, you want to line up with that bar around the midfoot of your foot, kind of where the laces on the shoe start and end on the far side of it. For grip width, that should ideally be straight down from your shoulders. Depending on people's different builds, that might look different. It needs to be outside of your stance, obviously. And the biggest key is the more narrow you get, generally it's going to be easier to hold on to the bar. The wider you get, it's going to be harder to hold on to the bar. But if you get your grip too narrow, as you start to lock out, your arms can start to run into your body and make it difficult to pull yourself through because you're running into yourself. In terms of how to grip the bar, you want to generally take an over-under grip. Depending on whether you're right or left-handed, you may feel more comfortable either this way or that way. There's also hook grip, which you can find in an advanced video for the deadlift. You want to grip the bar firmly and very strong. You also want to think about flexing your tricep. The arms need to be straight, hanging down, and a big thing on the deadlift, at no point do you want to think about pulling the bar. When you start to pull the bar with an over-under grip, that's when you will tear your bicep. So again, you grip the bar firmly, and thinking about flexing the triceps help because it straightens your arm. You don't want to think about pulling with a bar. So once you have your stance width and once you have the distance from the bar correct, you go and you grip the bar. The next thing to do, you pull tension into the bar to create the lifter's wedge in yourself. Make sure you understand and have watched the video on the lifter's wedge and the hip hinge. So stance is good, grip is good, you get the bar, you pull tension into the bar to create tension in your body, getting down into that lifter's wedge. You want to keep the spine neutral. You will probably have to sacrifice some neutral spine depending on your build and your stance to get down to the bar. But once your grip is set, you want to make sure you pull your back into a neutral spine position and you wedge those hips down, creating a good lifter's wedge. And that's going to create that tightness that you need to bring the bar off the ground. Since it is a deadlift, and we don't have a descent to load our body up to compress ourselves like a spring, since we don't have that, we need to create it ourselves, and we do that by pulling tension into the bar and pulling ourselves down into that good lifter's wedge with a neutral spine, keeping braced. Once we're pulled down into that lifter's wedge, we want to make sure that our lats are tight, and we can think about our lats being tight by rotating the shoulders like this and depressing the shoulders down. Again, in some of the spine videos, we know that pulling the shoulders down, doing an anti-shrug, creates that upper back musculature to support our spine under heavy load. So everything is set, we're wedged into the bar, the lats are tight, everything is ready to go, and we want to keep the weight on our heels. If we have weight too far forward on the balls of our feet or on the toes, if too much weight is there, that bar is going to pull us forward when we try and pull it off the ground. So we want our weight to be behind the bar. We're going to use our body weight and our tension that we're pulling into the bar to create a lever arm and cantilever to be able to pull the bar off the ground. In order to do that, we need most of the weight on the heels. If as you're set up on the deadlift, ready to go, the instant before you try to pull the bar off the ground, if you were to release your hands from the bar, you should go tumbling backwards because that is the direction that the tension and force needs to be set up to go. Huge key on the deadlift, we want to be able to allow that bar to travel straight up. That might require some tweaking with where you set up with the bar relative to your feet. If you set up with the bar too close to you, the bar is going to need to drift out to get around your knees. If you set up with the bar too far away from you, you're in a very poor leveraged position to get the bar off the ground. So once everything is ready to go, we have the right stance width, the bar is in the correct position, we get our good grip width, we get ourselves pulling tension into the hinge or the lifter's wedge into our good starting position. Lats are locked in and tight, everything is ready to go. We take our final breath, we breathe, we brace, and we push our heels into the floor, trying to push the world away while we drive the bar off the ground. I see two common mistakes in the setup of most lifters. The first one is rushing the setup. What rushing the setup can do is allow you to not get your grip set appropriately, not have your grip set right. And the other thing it can do is you're rushing the setup and it's not going to give you a chance to really build tension into the bar before you pull, and it's not going to allow you to get that breathing, bracing properly done, and you're not going to be in ideal position to get the bar going off of the floor. The second mistake I see is that people don't pull enough tension into the bar while they're wedging themselves down into that good starting position, and that's going to cause the bar to drift out in front, which you're going to see can become a big problem later.